Celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting, 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Thursday, March 9, 2017, and here are some of today's trends in the news. On the market front, over there in Asia, well, you got Nikkei up a little bit, but Hang Seng and Shanghai a bit lower. Over there in Europe, we got FTSE down a little bit. DAX and CAC just up a little bit. And here in the States, kind of flat. But oil's down again, and so too is gold. Neither of which come as a surprise to subscribers of the TrendsJournal and people who watch Trends in the News. On the stock front, well, tomorrow's the big day here in the States. They're going to release those numbers of how many people got jobs in February. And they're looking for a high number. If that number comes in high, of course, the odds are now that the Fed's going to raise interest rates next week. But if the number comes in real high, will they keep to their word and raise them 3 more times or 2 more times, 3 times total for the year, as they suggested? Because let's not forget, back in 2015, in December, they said they raised them 4 times in 2016, and they only raised them once. But if that number comes in strong and the trends continue in the direction they're going in, it appears they're going to raise them at least 1 more time. Now, how is that going to affect the markets? Well, we see what it's doing to gold already. Again, gold prices keep going down because the stronger the dollar gets, the lower gold goes. And you know we've been saying this now for quite some time. And our downside is about $100 from where gold is now. Around the 1,200 mark, it could go down to 1,100. Could even test the 1050. But the lower the price gold goes, the more physical demand for it around the world. So it does have a bottom. And again, as I've said over and over again, we do not see strength in gold until it hits over the $1,400 an ounce point and solidifies above that. As for oil, I know this is going to come as a big surprise. Oil prices slid, extending the previous session's dive that brought prices to the lowest level this year as record U.S. crude inventories fed doubts about whether OPEC-led supply cuts would reduce a global glut. And now we're seeing West Texas breaking below that $50 a barrel mark. Again, as I've been saying now for months, and particularly over the last 2 months, with oil trading in such a narrow range, $3 to $5 in either direction, you can see the weakness of it. So again, we stick by our forecast, $60 a barrel's the top, could go back down and even test the 30s. Again, minus a wild card. And just to show you the weakness of it and how the Saudis were wrong, and we've been doing this now for years. Remember, oil was at $115 a barrel back in June of 2014. And the Saudis said they were going to keep pumping to drive out all those high-cost producers. And it didn't work. And now, this is the news from the Saudi prince yesterday. Saudis to U.S. oil firms: don't expect OPEC cuts to offset rising shale output. Hey, I guess the prince must read the TrendsJournal or watch Trends in the News. What a shock. Blow me away. Hey, maybe I could become a prince now, because I've been saying this for 2 years. Anyway, moving on. Going back to consumer confidence. It keeps rising. We're looking at levels now of 10-year highs. It counts what Trump says regarding different aspects of the economy. And again, people can't get over the hate-love relationship they have. Samsung explores U.S. expansion. The initial capital investment is expected to be around $300 million. Samsung's interest in a U.S. factory was influenced by the election of U.S. President Donald Trump. This is the Wall Street Journal. So these are the positives of the Trump election regarding the economy. Again, go back to our trend alert. Yes, there's going to be a correction. It could even be a bear market correction, going down 10 points, 10%, I should say. But minus a wild card event, we see more growth in the markets. Talking about those interest rates, and I've been talking about this for how long? Interest rates have been low interest rates, zero interest rate policy in the United States and Europe is a war against savers. The front page story here in today's Wall Street Journal. Retirees get squeezed by low rates, and they quote this one guy. Quote, "My dad used to put his money in CDs, getting 15%. I remember those days. If interest rates were high, I would have invested in fixed income," this fellow said. The drop in interest rates since the financial crisis cost U.S. savers, you ready for this? $1 trillion in lost income from saving accounts. It's a war against the savers. All these low interest rates have done is to fuel the stock markets. The record-breaking stock buybacks because they borrowed money cheaply and merger and acquisition activity. The rest are facts, including what I just said, that of the 10 million jobs Obama brags about that he created, according to the Harvard-Princeton study, 94% of them are temporary. 95% of the wealth has gone to the 1%. That's what low interest rates have done. They've artificially inflated the markets as well as the real estate market. Now, that's the other aspect. When these interest rates go up, watch what happens to the real estate market. Weak store traffic pressures retailer. Express Inc.'s profit plunged 60% in its fourth quarter as the retailer remains pressured by waning store traffic and increased discounting. The apparel chain said same-sale stores fell 13%. It's Express. It's a pretty, trendy place. Yes, people are buying online, but it's the pall on the mall. It's one of your stories in the Trends Journal, a trend that I've been long predicting and was criticized for doing it many years ago when I spoke to the International Council of Shopping Centers, words to that effect, the trade association that represents them. They're overbuilt and the thrill of the mall is gone. It's going back to old-fashioned downtowns where you have a buying experience with products and services that you can't get in a big box store or a mall or online. What's another one of the trends we've been talking about? Bitcoin. And we said Bitcoin looks good, but the caveat, now it's over like $1,200 an ounce, a coin, a little bit around the gold era, is government interference. China halt on Bitcoin continues. China's three largest Bitcoin exchanges said their suspension of withdrawals could continue indefinitely as they upgrade systems to meet regulators' requirements. Demand in China has slid, pulled down not only by fears of further regulatory tightening, but by the introduction of trading fees by the three largest exchanges, which has made speculation more costly. Prices have been buoyed by demand from Japan, as well as speculation about the possible Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. And that's going to be a big one. But again, it's an iffy situation. And these are just some of the many trends that we're going to be discussing and others as we move forward into June. So look out. if you want to get on top of the trends and ahead of the news, our Ireland retreat with me, Gerald Celente. That's right, you're going to find your future in trends. This is the week-long conference in the magnificent Galway, Ireland, June 10th to 16th. So we hope you can make it. We're going to have a great time besides. Talk about the trends, talk about how to profit from them and avoid the dangers, and to enjoy ourselves because, hey, as Mr. Boogie says, you got to boogie before the lights go out because tomorrow is iffy. And you want to see how iffy it's getting? China in direct challenge to Trump over North Korea. Front page story here is the Financial Times. China's foreign minister has warned the Trump administration it is on a collision course with North Korea that risks a dangerous escalation and called on Washington to halt military exercises with Seoul to avoid conflict. I've been covering this and I'm going to keep covering it. This is what else China's foreign minister said. Quote, North Korea has ignored international opposition and insisted on advancing its nuclear and missile programs in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Wow. But he also said, on the other hand, the United States and the Republic of Korea are conducting military exercises of an enormous scale and putting more military pressure on North Korea. Of an enormous scale. Our money, year after year, going to this fraud of these military exercises. So, if you're a country and you're being threatened by the United States and its neighbor, you think you're going to build up a defense system? Or else are you going to play a Gaddafi, and go under? Because that's what would happen. And they know it. So China's speaking balanced here, but the American media doesn't present it like that. A reliance on China jeopardizes the South Korean economy. Another story here. And they're talking about companies have been bracing for the worst. Now that the deployment of that missile system, begins this week, and China threatens to punish South Korea further. The intensifying diplomatic, this is what the New York Times calls it a ruckus. Yeah, you're putting a missile system on your borders over here, and you call it a ruckus. Is exposing deep cracks in South Korea's economic success story and forcing the nation to confront its dependence on China, its largest trading partner. Chinese factories are major buyers of Korean-made components. A growing Chinese middle class embraces Korean devices, cosmetics, televisions, shows, and music, often in shopping trips across the Yellow Sea. Beijing has protested South Korea's agreement to host the missile defense system, and the Chinese state news media have been calling for a boycott affecting everything from South Korean pop stars and television programs to Korean-owned supermarkets. This week, alarmed by the most recent test of ballistic missiles by North Korea, the United States began to deploy the system. So, again, going back to Ireland and getting together to have a nice time, we all meet, talk about the trends, what to invest in, what to not. We don't give investment advice, but for you to consider, and where the future is heading, because there's a lot of clouds up there on the geopolitical front. Farmers clash with police during protests, Greek farmers. European creditors and the International Monetary Fund on new required cutbacks, including future tax and pension overhauls. Protesters are angry at the increases in their taxes and Social Security contributions, part of income and spending cuts and tax increases that the Greek government has implemented to meet budget targets, not to meet budget targets, to pay off the banks that made bad deals, As the economy is going down, as the GDP worsens, what do? They force the people who are being hit by these to pay more. So again, this whole populist movement is spreading, and it's going to keep growing. And we have the elections coming up in the Netherlands, the ones coming up in France, ones coming up in Italy later in the year. You're going to see more and more destabilization. There's no question about it. And then finally, a piece from the Prostitute Days, the New York Times, where the New York Slimes, and I'm justified in saying this because the facts speak for themselves, it is the toilet paper of record. This is by the little man they have there who's been a propagandist for quite some time, Stephen Erlanger. Journalism or propaganda? A Russian TV network blurs the line. RT he's talking about. Watching RT, he writes, can be a dizzying experience. Hey, I'm on RT frequently. They let me say anything I want. But you little people in the New York Times, you don't cover our information at all because you're into that little clique of liars. That's right. Hey, where's that CIA story? How come that's not on the front page of the New York Times, Erlanger? But your bullshit story is. Because it's a cover-up, as the CIA is wasting hundreds of billions of our dollars to spy on us, and they're not even reporting on it anymore. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's on page 9. Oh, yeah, there's a little story about it, yeah. Covering it up after this massive exposure by WikiLeaks. Anyway, going on and reading. Hard news and top-notch graphics mix, which interviews from all sorts of people, well-known and obscure, left and right. Goes on to say who they are, and then he goes on to say, including odd voices like the actress Pamela Anderson and cranks who think Washington is the source of all evil in the world. Hey, little boy, 57 John Street, come and call me a crank man to man, you little prostitute freak. I say anything I want. I can't call the United States out for starting wars that you, the New York Slimes, sold us. I guess I'm a crank for calling you out. Yeah, you know, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. And your aluminum tubes, and you know where you could shove those. Disgusting individuals covering up the CIA onslaught and the FBI of our privacy and putting out propaganda to defame people like myself. There's to you, Mr. Erlanger. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's trends in the news.